I think we may have it, everybody. We'll see if everybody can see us here. I think we just about got this. Welcome, everybody. Sorry we had such a challenge with it. Looks like we're live. Yeah, we're coming through on all the streams now, so we'll start over again. Sorry about that. Anyway, welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Thanks for being with us. Give it just a second, George. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so welcome today. Glad you're all here. I think we finally got everything working. Do apologize for that, but you know, gotta keep the bugs working out as we go through. I'm sure the group was just kind of messing with us a little bit. So welcome today. Do have Kathy with us. We got a couple people with us today. I want to introduce. Kathy is part of our team. She's been with us for quite some time. In fact, anybody who's ever filled out a help desk ticket probably knows Kathy. Kathy, say hi to everybody. As we go through, I'm sure the group is just kind of messing with us a little bit. So welcome today. Okay. People with us today. Hang on. We need to turn off your sound. Yeah, we got to turn off your sound. Your sound is feeding back through. Where is it? Yeah, I think you're okay there.
Is the microphone?
No, it's not that. It's the sound from here. Okay. There we go. Okay, I think we got everything squared away now. We'll see. All right, Kathy, can you hear us?
I can hear you
Yeah,
now.
we got it. It's just one of those days. We're just going to have to play with it. I'm going to go into channel, and everything's going to run smooth after that. Okay, I think we got.
Wait, Steve?
Yes.
I'm hearing an echo.
All right, Kathy, can you hear us?
I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, we got it.
So,
Just one of those days. It's an echo on yours. We're going to need you to turn it down a little bit. And everything's going to run smooth after that.
wait, Steve?
Yes.
I'm hearing an echo.
It's been one of those crazy days, everybody. Now we got an echo on Kathy's stuff, so we'll do the best we can. All right, how about now?
Well, I just muted the sound on YouTube, so
There you go.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can hear me.
I'm just going to go ahead. So where do you want me to pick up from?
We're going to start over. We're going to start from scratch.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'm gonna go into channel, and you go right ahead. I'll be right there.
Okay.
Greetings, dear ones. We join you this day with such a wave of energy. It's amazing to see the wave of energy that you guys create on your side of the veil. Incredible. Well done. We'll get to the questions here to start working with all of you, but welcome to all of you. We're so honored to be a part of this here today. So the first question, we'll take it to you.
Thank you for letting us laugh at our own energy. That was fun. Okay, this first question comes from Natalie, and she asks, the idea that the United States will become an oligarch dictatorship state is unreal, and this raises a few questions. One, why was the light that many of us have been bringing forward over these past years not enough to stop this situation?
Well, we tell you, dear ones, you had more of an effect than you can possibly know. The reality of it is, if you are unhappy with anything at any moment, it is because you have attached yourself to some outcome of the future. If you can stand back far enough, you can start to see that no matter where things move, they're actually heading in a positive direction. Now, it may not be exactly what you were anticipating, but we'll tell you that there's a huge movement going on globally to move people into a very scared position, basically. They're using fear as the motivating factor. And we'll tell you this has been going on. You have technology that's being used that you know very little about. And yet, all of it, none of it can actually supersede human interest. On top of all that, dear ones, we tell you you're moving through dimensional levels. And all of this mess that's going on with things that are taking place, and some of this is actually masculine and feminine energy balancing back and forth, but some of that actually is much more on the lower vibrations. As you step into higher vibrations, it becomes less important. It's not important at all. You'd be surprised at how you can learn to live in a different aspect of being able to do that. So release your idea that you failed, because you didn't. It's going to take a little while for you to see the outcome. Back to you.
This is from Hemda Taylor. She's on our transition team in Israel. And she asks, is there anything the group of 9 can share about the future situation in Israel, both the war and the political situation?
This is a challenge from way back when. It has a lot to do with belief systems. It's very simple. We tell you that you have gone through so much energy working with belief systems which have actually helped. They've helped humans to actually grab hold of things. You cannot see that you are creator beings, so you must put your creations outside of yourself in order to see them. This has been the way. This has also created belief systems. It's created every religion. It's created every need to have, in the very beginning of humanity, in the very beginning, you worshiped the sun. It was very simple. It came up every day. It gave you everything you needed. It filled all the requirements of a creator being outside of yourself. So that is the challenge that you've seen. Now, when you live your lives according to those structures and according to those belief systems, you run across other belief systems that are opposite of those. That has been going on rapidly in this area of the world and has been going on for quite some time, and it's on both sides. Be very clear about that. It's on both sides, very clear. You've seen what's taken place on the Palestinian side. You've also seen what's taken place on the Israeli side. Both of them are way out of alignment. Very simple. And until they can learn to live together, there will not be peace in the Middle East. It's very simple. The struggle for the Middle East is still very much on. For the longest time, it was about oil. It's still about oil. It's about money, basically, is what this is. But this struggle for control of the Middle East has been going on for every government on planet Earth for some time. And you're going to find that it's all for naught, because down the road, you're not going to need that oil. It's real simple. You're going to find out very quickly that the oil itself is more of a problem than it is the help. And that's difficult to do because you cannot cut off the oil right now. You literally would stop everything in its tracks. But to move over there more quickly is what we see happening. And we hope that that takes place. Now, will that resolve the situation in Israel with Palestine? No. That's going to take a different type of approach. One that is not even on the table at this point. We hope sincerely that this is able to settle out and people can stop living by belief systems. Very simple. It happens in both directions, and it's a challenge all the way around. And we hope that down the road you're able to see a lot more of what's taking place right now on planet Earth. Many of you have even signed up to be here during this transition that's taking place. You carry part of the puzzle. Back to you.
This comes from Gordana, and she asks, how can we make sure our loved ones in heaven are doing well?
Well, the interesting part of that is a question you never need to ask. The first thing that happens when you step out of your body is the pain leaves. Now, it's interesting because if you stop right now and you ask somebody, are you in pain? They'll say, no, we're not in pain. But there is an innate pain of being human. It's a pain of pretending to be separate, of pushing the energy out into the world in a different expression. And the moment you step out of that body, you feel free in a way that you've never felt before. That alone is huge. Because what takes place is when you came to this earth, you had to divide up your perfection in different ways. You divided up 11 different aspects of your perfection in different things. And when you go home, you combine all of that together. All those missing parts of you come back together. Now, there's also many times when someone will leave. You may be very close to someone who passed away, and you may be wanting to hear from them. You may even want to go to a psychic. You may want to go to a medium to talk to someone who's passed away, only to find it very difficult to do. That is their process. They're very much aware that they can make matters worse by coming to you ahead of time. So sometimes, dear ones, when you're trying to connect with somebody who you love dearly who has just passed, and they seem to be not responding to you, that's the reason. They really want you to go through your grieving process, to integrate them into your life in a different way, to be able to do that in a whole different aspect of things. But the reality is, they're perfect. They're back to normal. They're back to who they really are. And they're very proud of you, my dear. You're not alone on this planet like you think you are. There's so much more that's taking place. We're very honored to have you be part of this family. Welcome home. Back to you.
This question comes from Lavon, and she asks, light masters are often referred to as the greatest of angels on earth. Does this mean that many of them are actual angels who have given up their wings in this lifetime?
We find it fascinating, the stories that you make up and the things that you do. You are creator beings. You create everything. And yet you can't see that. You can't see the possibilities of living an infinite life. You can't see a lot of the aspects that we're talking about, even about triality. You're still working with a lot of the second dimensional imprints that you had to get to live in the third dimension. So releasing some of those becomes very important at this point, to be able to do that, to be able to work in a whole different level, to be able to work with this. Excuse us just a second. We have something going on with his nose. Sorry. Where were we? What was the question? Do apologize.
The question was, light masters are often referred to as the greatest of angels on earth. Does this mean that many of them are actual angels who have given up their wings in this lifetime?
In a way they have. In a way they actually have. And yet the whole angelic realm, the whole idea of this archangel does this archangel does that, this archangel does this, those were all human stories made up by humans. So it's very difficult to understand what we call the angelic realm. But basically we are from what we call the angelic realm. And so are you. Most of you have actually taken off your wings in order to be on this planet. Now, it's not everybody, and it's a fairly small division of all of humanity, but it's all of you that are watching this. It's all of you that have had this feeling like you can't quite know where to connect. You don't quite have your family. You're looking for the new pieces of it. That is what's taking place. And it's happening on a very quick basis here too. So with that, we'll return back over to you one more time.
Hey, Timpton asks, in one of the recent park bench sessions, the group said that we were star beings and that we are troubleshooters. What are star beings and what is our role here on the earth?
Well, you're spirits, first of all, so please understand that. This physical incarnation that you have is a temporary expression that you can keep for a short time. But the reality is you're spirits, you're infinite beings, you're constantly moving from place to place. There were times when many of this family, and we say that very loosely, not meaning everybody on earth, but meaning people that are here at this type of gathering, people that consider themselves light workers, people that consider themselves spiritual beings looking for that spiritual experience. Those have come in at a very important time to be here at a very critical moment of time-space. And that is starting to happen on many multiple levels. You're basically moving into the fifth dimension, which is already here. You're just anchoring more of your reality into that space at this time to be able to work with that. I hope that answers your question for you. Back to you.
This comes from Jessica Alvarez, and she has two questions. The first one, I've heard there have been other beings who have previously ascended while still in their physical bodies. as I understand humans are now doing. If this is true, can the group tell us more about who some of these beings are, where they came from, what similarities and differences their circumstances were to ours, and what we are going through?
There are so many beings on your planet that you know very little about. We have talked about your 4 primary parental races being here, what you call ETs. But we tell you there's less than 168 different fractions of ETs on your planet from different places with different areas and different things to be able to work with in different ways. So there's much of this that can be spread out in different areas. But the reality is you have a very unique position here. And the reality is that your work is starting to move in different ways. Can you repeat the question one more time for us?
Sure. I've heard there have been other beings who have previously ascended while still in their physical bodies, as I understand
Right.
humans are now doing. If this is true, can the group tell us more about who some of these beings are, where they came from, what similarities and differences their
Right.
circumstances were?
Some of these are actually what you would consider to be ETs that have developed the ability to move between dimensions. They are dimensional beings. Much of the things that you see something in the sky that you can't explain. It moves at thousands of miles per hour. It turns on a dime. It does things that your physics will not allow you to do. It is because they've learned to shift dimensionally. So some of these are dimensional beings that are here. Now the question becoming, are people ascending with their physical bodies? And the biggest question that Spirit's going to ask is, why on earth would you want to take your body with you? Your body has caused you more problems than you can possibly imagine. To release that body and to let go of that human pain that we talked about a few moments ago is huge. It is so incredibly freeing that you really don't need to step out and take your body with you in those ways. Now, there are so many possibilities here, it's difficult to even classify them as one or the other. But we'll tell you one of the ways that this has happened is through what you would call ETs that have learned to shift dimensionally and step out and back into your reality in different ways. Some of these people are spiritual beings that have learned to, like you say, walk on the water, that have learned to basically reach a high level to anchor many fifth dimensional realities, even inside the third dimension, even years and years and years ago, to be able to do this. They are there as way showers, and some of those are there, but they're not basically there to teach you to just move with your physical body. Your physical body is a weight upon you, and it does provide a lot of energy for you. It provides the opportunity for you to have this experience, but understand it is a massive weight. We hope that the reality is when you start ascending, you're going to shed that body and be thankful to shed it, not try to take it with you. Back over to you now.
Okay, she had a second question here, which is the Earth the first planet that is ascending with life on it? If so, what were the circumstances of other planets which ascended?
Which ascended? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are different planets that have worked in different ways. There are many planets that have moved in huge amounts of advancement. You've seen technological advancement, you've seen physiological advancement, you've seen different things that have advanced in different ways on different planets. But we also tell you that they all have a tendency to be in one general area. They all have a tendency to focus in one spot more than another. But the reality is your energies are much higher than you think. You've got capabilities that you're just starting to understand. Back over to you.
This question comes from Rita, and she asks, I've heard Lucifer's name means strong light. Has Lucifer become the adversary because we are afraid of our own light?
It's difficult to play these games with you because these are human stories. You must understand that. You had to go through the second dimension to get into the third dimension. In the second dimension, you were stamped with duality. That's how you see things. Up, down, good, bad, contrast. Right and wrong, love, fear, all the opposites of basically how you have perceived things. You're moving now into a field of triality, which is quite different. But releasing all these old ideas of good and bad and up and down. We'll tell you what took place. Lucifer is very real, but Lucifer is a reflection of human aspects. In other words, understand this. The story was that one angel turned against God and tried to become against God and then later became with God. It was a fascinating story if you look at some of the story with this. All of this story was simply made up to show duality. In other words, you say, as above, so below. But we say, as below, so above. Many times we form things so that humans can understand us. In order to understand duality, Lucifer came forward and tried to play the game. It is a part that was played. Very simple. Very easy to understand. Lucifer gave a lot of energy to a lot of people. But you must understand that as the veil starts to be removed, you're going to see things that you never understood before, and a lot of these things that you have considered to be important are not going to be nearly as important as you thought. Let go of all Lucifer's tale. Just smile when you think about him, because he brought some incredible energies in different places throughout the planet. We find it fascinating that of all the archangels, you don't have an archangel that's a female. What happened there? What took place exactly with that? Because we see them from this side of the veil, but you haven't acknowledged them on your side of the veil. We find it fascinating. Humans are funny animals, real simple. Enjoy the journey. Back over to you for the next question.
Patriarchy happened there, just saying. Okay, our next couple questions are about the 5D pineal gland activation class that we had, which was great. And this question is from Tracy F. And she says, Steve, regarding the medulla oblongata massage and energy work, I understood that it could be used to share the activation with others. But the whole time I thought it could also be adjusted for our own use. Since you never mentioned that, I assume I received all that is needed from the video activations. I'm kind of disappointed if I can't use that cool, elaborate procedure for me.
It's difficult. The procedure involves getting the energy through the Fibonacci spiral and be able to accumulate that and then bring it in toward the back of the neck, which is where you can reach the medulla oblongata, right below the occipital ridge on the back of your neck. It's very difficult to actually do that and get the energy correct if you are trying to do it to yourself. There are other ways that you can do this to yourself, which is why we showed you the different ways. On day 1 and day 2, especially day 2, we gave you all these different actions, these different activations. We gave you ones with magnetics. We gave you ones with blinking lights. We gave you ones with auditory sounds. We gave you all these different aspects. Any of these you can use on yourself to activate. We also gave you the whole theory of the red light and what you can do with these. These are all things that you can activate yourself with. Unfortunately, the spiral is very critical to try and get as close to the reality as you can. It would be very challenging to do it on yourself, but you can do it on other people. So it is a simple physical limitation that your body doesn't typically work that way. It's very simple. Back over to you.
Okay, this comes from Carrie, and it's also about the class. She says, hello, Steve. I've enjoyed the seminar immensely. I have the following questions. 1, the sound cut off for around 15 minutes during your higher self discussion. Can we get information on the higher self?
We had a fascinating situation where the sound cut out. It was just a fascinating situation because There is so much that you don't always see what's taking place. On the other side of the veil, there was a connection that was intentionally moved. What took place was rather interesting. You understand the keeper's rather technical. He has all these things that he has built here in this office, many of the computers and different aspects of being able to do that. But what took place when the sound went out was really interesting because it was not like anything that normally would happen on a technical basis. The sound dropped slowly and stayed at a very low level for almost 10-15 minutes. Now, fortunately, there was other channels that were be able to pick up, so it was be able to taken out and replaced. But those of you who watched it live watched a miracle happening. It was really interesting because just before that, we were talking at that time about hearing and about your hearing in the fifth dimension and how that was going to change and how that was going to work with aspects. And right after that, this took place. It was all coordinated for a different level. It's been replaced. The video can now be seen in its entirety without the volume dropping. But it was done for several different reasons from this side of the veil, and it worked rather well. So if you happen to you experienced a miracle. Enjoy the journey. Don't worry about what exactly took place because he still hasn't figured it out. The reality is it's something we did, not something he did. And it was intentional and it was done for a reason. And it succeeded. Back over to you.
I am laughing because I was there during that class. I was actually, I was in the chat room and I heard it fade out. I heard it drop, and then all of a sudden everybody was asking, like, what's happening? And I was trying to get Steve's attention. I never could get his attention, and then it came back up. And later I was like, it's absolutely true. That's what they were talking about us tuning into different frequencies.
Right.
And I was just laughing because that was the quiz. Can you hear this? It was the last class. And for anybody that is listening that might want to take that class, it is still available on steverother.org, and it was phenomenal. It's the 5D pineal gland activation. So if you're interested, I highly recommend it. It was great. So here's her second question on that. In the third class during the activations, after drawing the first spiral, you reference turn around and do it in the other direction. Can you explain the direction? Do we end up pointing at the occipital ridge, medulla oblongata area? Thank you for your assistance.
Well, you're right-handed or left-handed. When we showed you this Fibonacci spiral, you probably did it with your primary hand, with your dominant hand. What we said by turning around and doing the other one is do it with the non-dominant hand. In other words, if you started with the right and going the right spiral and bringing the right spiral into the medulla oblongata, now turn around and do it with the left and be able to balance it that way. So it was a balancing. This is actually more for the facilitator than the receiver. The receiver probably won't know as much of the difference, but when you're running tremendous energy like that, especially when you're tying into the universal energy, which is what that does when you work with the Fibonacci spiral, you basically can put yourself, your own physicality, out of balance. So it's actually really helpful for you to use one and then turn around and use the other side as well to keep yourself in balance. It's the primary reason for doing that. Back over to you.
Okay, our next question comes from Tracy, and she has two questions. The first question is, are you, Steve, bringing in the group to all 11 dimensions of Earth?
That's an excellent question. The answer is yes, and he was not aware of that until just now. That is correct. That is correct.
And the second question is, I created an understanding long ago based on your description of the spirit coming to Earth, leaving memory in the veil, and splitting from our higher self into 11 dimensions, the prism rainbow image. On seeing this shown again during the current pineal gland event, you said, you come in, hit your higher self, which splits the white light into our different aspects. This sounds like the higher self is sitting there separately, waiting for our spirit to arrive. But I had thought it was part of our whole spirit, which came from home. Thanks, this is really bothering me.
It's an illustration. It's very simple. There is no crystal. There is no specific white light. It is an illustration to show you in your reality, in your physics, how it works. You have this white light that comes down that you split off into all these rays of light. They're beautiful. They're colors, but they're imperfect white light is really what they are. The same is true when you divide yourself off into 11 different dimensions. You're dividing yourself up into 11 dimensions with differences in each one. That's the basic idea of the whole process. It is an illustration. Don't overly attach yourself to what comes first, the chicken or the egg. The reality is it all comes in at the same time. You also travel in something called the veil. Now, the veil has always been known as something that you wear over your face to keep you from seeing where you're going. But we consider the veil between dimensions to be quite different. We consider that to be a space where you actually travel through as you come to planet Earth. When the spirit first comes to planet Earth, you and your higher self and all of you come through this place called the veil. The veil is where you actually split off into your other dimensions and actually have anchors in all these other realities. So it's a little bit different, but it is a story. We have to make up these stories to share with you because the understanding of what really takes place is almost too simple for humans to understand. Back over to you.
This
I'm not quite
this
sure how
next
to help you
question
with
is
that.
from Mary, and she has two parts for it. So, part one, in your Beacons of Light message, you said the pendulum will start to swing back, but I'm not sure if you meant back to the masculine or more of the feminine energy.
Well, the pendulum is swinging pretty far. The interesting part is that it has moved even further to one side than we thought were possible at that point. So it has moved very drastically. A lot of this has been planned. A lot of this new energy that you see on planet Earth, and not just in the United States, it's everywhere. It has been well planned out. And as we mentioned, there is technology that you're unaware of that's being used. You will become aware of it. You're so wrapped up with all the new technologies, the quantum computing, the artificial intelligence. Now you've got all the different levels of that are starting to be created. Google has started to release an interim computer. You have so many things that are going to take place in such rapid succession that it's hard to keep track of all these different things that are taking place with you. But we'll tell you that this is all part of the evolution that's taking place very quickly on planet Earth. And again, there's no right or wrong about it. You're going to see the pendulum swing in both directions. But typically when it reaches that far reach, it jumps the track and starts to swing all over again. In other words, it doesn't jump to swing the other direction as much as it starts over neutral in the middle and starts swinging again. So it's a little bit different than how we may have described it as the pendulum swinging the other direction. What we mean by that is that it's reached its fulcrum point. You have a pendulum, it's swinging. It has a fulcrum point up here where it swings back and forth. When it reaches really hard levels, it jumps the track and starts over again and starts swinging again all over again. So it's a bit different than how we would normally describe it as a pendulum swinging from one side to the other. But that is basically what's taking place. And it is swinging the other direction, but it's also being resisted quite a bit right now. So everything's in place for the next stage of life, which is growing. It's finding its grounding right now, but it's going to have to take some energies and move through quite a bit of energy before it gets there. You'll see it before too long. Hang on there. Back over to you.
Okay, so you did touch on the second part of her question. I don't know if there's anything else to add, but she said also you mentioned an intentional move for a power takeover being aided by technology. Can you elaborate on that?
On the power cycles, was that the question?
Then, yeah, for a power takeover aided by technology.
Well, Technology is moving in different directions. Now, technology is also, there has been so much technology that has been traded. Now, there's so many different things that have taken place. Technology has moved incredibly on this planet since the 1940s. The technology drops on this planet have been one right after the other. The technology has moved so quickly that humanity has not caught up. You're still dealing with the after effects of social media. You still haven't figured that one out yet. It is huge on this planet. So there's a lot of these things that are moving very quickly, but are going to take time to anchor in and take time to figure out different ways. But right now, your technologies are moving so fast that it's very challenging to even, for most humans, to even know what is directly ahead. So that is happening right now. We're not afraid of it. It's not in fear. You've got some interesting things that are taking place that we'll share with you coming up as well, too. You're being well taken care of in many ways by those beings that you have called ETs. Some of them are taking very good care of humanity in general. And we'll talk more about that down the road. But there's a lot here that you can work with. Back over to you.
Hey, our next question comes from SR, and they ask, the group has been talking about no time. Can you tell us more?
One of the biggest challenges the Keeper has is trying to start to describe the universal energy, which is right on the plate. That is what we're starting to work with. You see, humans have moved into the fifth dimension, but don't really know how to anchor it. They've been living for so long in a third dimensional reality that it's going to take time. Now, there's been all sorts of figures given, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. The reality is it's going to take time no matter what it takes. So knowing exactly how long it takes to anchor the fifth dimension is kind of ridiculous. The reality is you'll stop talking about it because you get tired of hearing about it. But the reality of the fifth dimension is in front of you now. You're starting to uncover new things that have never been uncovered before. You're starting to see shortcuts that you've never seen before. You're starting to understand the cosmos that you've never understood before. All of these things are bringing you back to things that we have mentioned for a long time. One of them is that there is no time. Time itself is an illusion made up by humans in order to see their path. It's a very challenging thing to describe. We're going to be bringing that up in the next Lightmaster to talk about and we're also going to be bringing that up coming up in the next Focus event, which is all about generational trauma and so forth, because that travels through the universal energy. So in order to understand the universal energy, you have to understand the concept of no time, which is very challenging because you're right in the midst of time. You position yourself in your world by what happened yesterday and what you think is going to happen tomorrow. The reality of it is you only have this moment now. It's very challenging for humans. You've been taught you have to plan ahead. You have to get your college degree. You have to get this. You have to plan all these things that you're going to be working with. And yet you only have this moment now. When we start really anchoring that, now you can live in the fifth dimension. And you can find that in a whole bunch of different ways that you've not been familiar with. A lot of that is coming very quickly, very soon. Back to you.
Okay, so we have another question about time.
Sure.
Hello, Steve in the group. When you are home and decide to come back to Earth and you are making out your contracts, do you choose a particular point in time to come in that would be the best time or era to fulfill your lessons? So say, for instance, I'm alive right now in 2025, I transition. Do I get to choose to come back at any point in the timeline?
Yes and no. You generally don't. That's the interesting point. You can. You have all kinds of capabilities on the other side because there is no time in that way other than this now moment, which means that past and present do exist, or past and future do exist, but they exist in the now moment, which is even more confusing for humans. But the reality is that's part of what we're trying to work with on this level. The whole concept of no time is very challenging for people, but let's give you an illustration. we're going to be working with generational trauma. What is generational trauma? Well, let's say that your great-grandfather had a massive trauma. Maybe your great-grandfather went through a war. Maybe he was captured. Maybe he was tortured. Whatever the case, he's got this huge amount of trauma that he himself was not able to ground or bring in any way. That trauma tends to stay in the field of the family. It's just the way that it normally works. And this is in what we call the universal energy. In the universal energy, there is no time. Now, here's the interesting part. If you come in and you say, okay, I'm here to help clean up the family line, I'm here to help work with things, I think I can take on great-grandpa's generational trauma and I can work with it. And you do, and all of a sudden you've got all these symptoms. You're experiencing depression, you've got anxiety, you've got all these other things that are taking place, and you don't have any signs of trauma or anything behind you. It's because you pick this up in a generational way. Now, here's the interesting part. Your grandfather's still there. You may think he died, but he's still in the universal energy. He has tuned himself to a frequency which only allows him to be in certain time frames. It's where he's comfortable. It's very simple. So he has basically set his energy to where he's living in the 1800s. He's living in the latter part of the 1800s. He's trying to do the best he can. And even if he comes back, he's going to probably end up putting himself in that same time frame. That's kind of how it works for most people. So the illusion of time is very confusing for people. However, if you are one of these people that have picked up the trauma from a generation before or several generations before, and you want to release it, you contact your great-grandfather who started the whole thing. And you work with him because he's still there. And you can do that. And those are some of the things we're going to share with you coming forward. Not just about generational trauma, but in Lightmaster, we're going to be talking a lot about the overall process of universal energy, what it is from our perspective, what the process is. This is not new, by the way. This has been around for a very long time. One of your ancient religions back in Sanskrit called it Akasha. If you look up what the Akasha is and the Akashic records, you'll understand exactly what this is. They say specifically, it is the flow that ties everything together. That's exactly what it is. And even your sciences are starting to understand that because they have no physical reference for this in their world. They basically had to make up another space for it. But that's the process that's going on, and it's happening very quick in this now moment.
Our next question is from SR. Please share with us about alien visitors. Are we in danger?
You have such fascinating parts of this. You have records of aliens being around for long before your recorded history. We tell you that many of the angels that you have looked up to, even some of the early angels, even some of the Greek gods that were around in the beginning, were actually references to some of the ETs that were there after the flood. The major floods that took place on planet Earth, there were groundings of new energy, but they also needed direction. They needed to learn how to live together. They needed to learn. So many of the high aspects of teachers were there after the flood to do that. And many of those got labeled as angels, as gods, as different aspects to be able to bring them into your reality. Is very simple. So you've got this whole history of being able to do that over and again. The hardest part for you to understand is you are God. And that is so difficult to grasp in so many different ways. But the reality is you're looking in the mirror. This is you that you're perceiving in different ways. And that aspect is a fairly new one for all of you. So understand that. Doesn't mean that your religions are wrong. It doesn't mean that anything's right or wrong. It means that you're evolving. That's basically what it means. Back over to you.
Okay, and Anna asks, I'm super interested in the Earth changes, 3 days of darkness, Flash, and the new Earth. If the group could talk more about all of that, it would be great. Thank you, Steve, for all you do.
Thank you. We don't actually talk about 3 days of darkness. That was the photon belt. This was from back in the 70s and 80s. The photon belt was supposed to be the place that we were going to be passing through. And there would be 3 days of darkness and we would emerge from the other side. The reality is a beautiful story. It's a wonderful way to motivate people to look into a higher realm, but we did not bring that in, so we cannot really comment on it. But the reality is there's all these different aspects of markers that you can see in your reality of the evolution of humankind. That's the part to keep in mind. That is the part to look at. And even if you're stepping in directions that you're uncomfortable with, many of the political changes that have happened globally, many people are very unhappy with. Well, we tell you, you're liable to get a little more unhappy with it as things progress for the time being. But the reality is it allows you to define things very clearly and defines you to understand where you are and where you wish to go from there. These are all directly ahead in this now moment. Back over to you.
Okay, I have two more. First one is, why do people have depression? Is there any life lesson behind this? How can friends and family members help if they can help? That's from George.
Can you do that first one
Sure.
again? Why do
Yes,
people have what?
Okay, question is, why do people have, I'll split this up for you. Why do people have depression? Is there a
Depression.
life lesson behind this?
Gotcha. Depression is a situation. It's an energetic situation. Basically, you have this energetic bubble around your heart chakra. We're just going to use that as an illustration. It is actually a torus because around all energies are actually toruses on your side of the veil. This torus is like a donut and it moves in a direction like this. So constantly what's happening is your creative energy can come out, hits that donut and is dispersed into the world. It's basically distributed into the world and through that torus, that part of your energetics. There are certain situations where the torus can stop moving. When the torus stops moving, it actually turns around and moves slightly the other direction. What happens in that situation is your creative energy can't come out. And this causes a lot of confusion, a lot of challenges in different areas. What happens is it progresses is basically you put on these dark glasses. You have this depression, you have this anxiety. Everything looks dark. In that situation, what's happened is the donut is now turning around and going backwards. So everything that you are trying to create is coming back at you. So when you are in these states, the last thing in the world you want to do is create. And yet, what we tell you is much of the energy of getting out of these and breaking these cycles has to do with finding new ways of creating. Finding something to do that you've never done before, anything at all that you can find to start creating in a new way. Doesn't make any difference whether you're good at it or not. That's not the important part. The important part is to find a way to start getting this donut turning the right direction again. And it doesn't typically do it by doing something you've done before. It needs something new. So new actions, new creative process. And this is a huge area, dear ones. This is not a small area that we can say, this works every time, this works, just do this and you'll get out of this situation. There's many aspects for people being in these areas of depression, anxiety. Mental illness is huge on planet Earth, much more. Your prisons are filled with them. The reality is you don't know what to do with most people that you work with that have mental illness in these ways. But the truth of the matter is you can work with this. You can, if you are working with someone who has depression, look for new ways, particularly that they can create. Something that they can do even for a short time that can take them out of that realm and focus that creative energy to get that torus moving again. That is one of the aspects that we suggest for people that are in these situations. And as we mentioned, there's many different reasons for being in this situation. This will not work for everyone, but it works for a lot of them. So overall, this situation is a block of creativity. It's the best we can give you on that. Okay, back over to you, Kathy.
Okay, last question I have here is, how is Canada going to fare through Trump's administration?
Well, that's kind of a good question. We're not quite sure how the United States is going to fare through this administration, so we'll just have to wait and see. The reality is there's a lot of alignments that are taking place to not have these clashes. You saw your prime minister step down recently. This is part of the reason. There's a lot of places where they realize that they're going to be up against a very challenging United States government, and one that is going to demand certain things. It's liable to be challenging in many ways. Right now, what you're seeing is an alignment. You're seeing people starting to align themselves to not have the challenges. And down the road, the challenges will be welcomed. But right now, they're trying to align themselves to kind of get out of that particular cycle. Is that it?
Yep, that's all I have.
Excellent, excellent. We'll move over to George here. Let George bring us one or two.
I have some questions here. The one is from Constellations. Actually, he's asking something that has to do with the last question. He's asking how Trump's election is going to influence Europe, and more specifically, Balkans and Greece. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes, it's going to. You're seeing some fascinating things take place on a global basis. There is an organization. We're just going to put it that way, very simply. This is an organization that has been working globally for quite some time. It's the same organization that puts on your congressional prayer breakfast, which is kind of an oxymoron in a lot of ways, because your congressional is not supposed to have prayer, period. The reality is your Constitution separates church and state very clearly, but now you've got an organization that has worked their way into the inner workings of your government, very deep, not just the United States. This is global, and they've been working on it for 40 years to align things to where they could actually take over, where they could basically put their ideas of importance first. You're seeing it take place. You're seeing it unfold. You've seen it all written out in what they call Project 2025. You've seen it start with the Supreme Court of the United States ridiculing abortion and releasing all those doctrines that were in place for health. A lot of different aspects are starting to move in these ways. But we also tell you it's a pendulum. And the pendulum only swings so far before it resets. Keep that in mind. In the meantime, you're going to see a lot of this. You're going to see it globally. You will see a move toward conservatism. You will see a move toward populism on your planet. Populism is very simple. It's when somebody stands up in front of them, in front of a group of people, and the largest amount of reaction he can get from those people is the new policy that he takes on. This is taking place on several places throughout the world. And it's simply trying to gain power, trying to keep power in many ways. So how is this going to work? Well, different areas it's going to work more than other areas. But the reality is all of it's going to have some challenges, because the best laid plans will not work. You cannot force people to believe a certain way. Very simple. And ultimately, you're going to see organized religion take a huge hit, another huge hit, to be able to. They've made a huge difference on this world in different ways, but now by taking control, by trying to move into a position of control of government in this ways, to make sure that everyone that's exactly what happened in Rome. In Rome, you had all these religions. You had all these different aspects of things. They were combined. It's very simple. They wanted to have one religion, to keep it all very simple. It's happening again. It's very simple. Will it have the same effect? No, it won't. But that's the idea. That's the intent. Back to you, sir.
Okay, the next question is from Jenny from Greece. She's asking, what are the main things that help us step into the 5D, the fifth dimension? And if somebody achieved this, going into that energy, is it going to last, being in that state?
Yes. The reality is the more that you experience the fifth dimension, the more it lasts. Your brain, your physical brain, changes with every thought that you have. Every thought that passes through your brain physically changes your brain. So you're always evolving. If we can get you to experience certain things in the fifth dimension, they remain because you've experienced them. And you start moving into these higher realms and you start using different aspects all the time. That is really helpful. We've done the Park Bench Project. We've been doing it for some time. It is simply an hour journey into a different space, into a fifth dimensional space where other things exist. Why do we do that? Because it changes your brain every time you do it. Every time you go into a meditation, you come out a better person because you're bringing that energy in a different way. Those evolutions are huge. And those are the things that you're going to start seeing now. So when you experience anything in the fifth dimension, you change. You start to evolve. And even if you go back into your third dimensional world and pretend to be a third dimensional being, you're carrying part of that fifth dimension. You're not only helping you, but you're helping everyone around you. So things that you can experience will help tremendously on these aspects to be able to do this. Now, the other aspect about the fifth dimension is that in order to step into it fully means you must release certain aspects which were very high truths in the third dimension. And that's a challenge. That is certainly a challenge. The one that we've been working on, that we've been working with the Light Masters on consistently, has to do with duality. In the second dimension, you were stamped with duality. You were given an ego in the second dimension. And it allowed you to pretend to be who you are. It allowed you to do things, but it also shows you as contrast. And that is a rather big challenge in many different ways. So you'll see different areas of being able to work with that, but being able to release duality long enough to step into triality is a challenge. And those are the things that we're working on with the Light Masters and other areas of our work right at the moment. And also to understand this no time thing, which is very challenging for humans to understand. But when you really grasp it, you'll see that you have capabilities of working throughout time. Time is not quite what you thought it was, but it's very real and it's very malleable. You can change much of this energy. And we'll share more of that as we move into the universal energy further. Back to you, sir.
Okay, there is another question from Jenny from Greece.
Wait, you have all these from Greece. Now, wait, how did you get all these from Greece?
This is my country. So, Jenny asks, there is a technique that is called family constellations.
Yes.
This is made by Bert Hellinger. And she asked if this technique can help cure the generational trauma.
To some degree, yes, to some degree. The whole idea of family constellations is that families are built in certain ways, certain roles and certain aspects to be able to do it. It's helpful to understand what this is an energy snapshot. It allows you to see yourself and the energy around here by basically taking an energy snapshot. This is who we are, these are the roles we play, and this is where we're at. Will this facilitate completely everything on the other side and be able? No, it won't. But it's one of many modalities that you can start using. You're all healers and teachers. All of you are in some ways, whether you know it or not. You may not think you're a teacher, but yet your friends all come to you when they have a problem, don't they? The reality is many of you have your degree of kitchen table counseling many times over. The truth of the matter is you'll use these things. Play with them. Practice them. Use them in different ways and watch what happens. Back over to you, George.
We have another question. Marmory is saying, she's asking about her dreams. She normally sees herself in a younger version of herself.
I'm not quite sure how to help you
And
with that.
she asks, why she sees herself younger in her dreams. And I would like to ask, just to ask for all the people, what dreams, um, uh, is there any message in our dreams about our lives?
One of the interesting aspects of your dreams is that there's many reasons and types of dreams that you'll have. One of them is simply an energy balancing dream. Many people have these and don't realize it. In other words, people that work all day in the light, like the keeper working in the light all the time, can have very negative energy dreams. Sometimes he wakes up arguing and swinging and everything else. It's basically a balance of the dreams. Other times you have real experiences. And these are many times when you go to sleep, dear ones, your conscious brain falls asleep and you're able to shift dimensions. And that happens quite often. When you have these dreams that are so real that 2 weeks later you remember every detail of them, you remember things, and yet they were different. They might have been calling you by a different name. You may have had a different partner. You may have had different children. You may have had a dog when you actually have a cat. There's different aspects of you that exist in these different realities. Many times when you go to sleep, you actually shift dimensions and can actually have an experience in one of your other dimensions of time-space. It's a very simple thing. You always know that you're there. You know that you're a visitor. And all you really need to do is tell yourself you're going to wake up, and you wake up. So it's not like you can actually be trapped anywhere, and it's not like you can do any harm when you're doing this, because it is you. It's part of who you are. But you can experience new things this way. And you can start to experience and see that your own realm stretches much further than you thought. So the actual dimensional realities are huge. And you'll experience many of these in dreams as well. So some of your dreams you pay close attention to. Some are prophetic dreams, talking about the future. But most of them are either energy balancing dreams or dreams sometimes into other dimensions of your own time-space. We hope that helps. Back to you, sir.
Okay, we have two more questions. The first is about psychotherapy, and if psychotherapy these days plays a role in our helping us going to the fifth dimension. Does it play a role?
All of these therapies can help. There's psychotherapy, specifically one of them. Psychotherapy is an offshoot. It's basically an offshoot in some ways. It's one of the modalities that have surfaced during these incredible understandings of the brain. There are so many new understandings of the brain. We've talked about them in our work having to do with the bodysuit, the fact that the brain actually has two separate parts. It has the automatic part and it has the conscious reasoning part. That alone is fairly new information on planet Earth that can make a huge difference in the way things work. But it's a new modality. The one of psychotherapy has been around for a while. Carl Jung developed some really fascinating things with this process. Took Sigmund Freud's work and expanded it out to another one. We'll tell you something else. The person who asked this question actually has a modality of your own. So the question about can you use psychotherapy to move people to the fifth dimension, the answer is yes, but we're also going to encourage you to stretch your belief systems beyond what you have learned. You've come back with some incredible pieces of this. You've come back with more parts of the puzzle than you were able to leave the last time you were here. So with that, we're going to encourage you, please stretch. Don't think you have to follow something ABC. It's not going to work for you the same way. Follow your intuition, jump into it, dare to try new things, and to take some shortcuts because they are rampant right now and they're readily available for you. And you have come in specifically with these energies to do exactly that. Welcome home. Welcome home. Back to you.
And we have one last question from Debbie. Debbie asks, where can we go to get news that is factual these days?
That is the big challenge, is it not? Where does the news come from? Well, it's fascinating because so many people thought they would be able to get news just from their neighbors, from other people that were there. They didn't trust the big news networks anymore to do it, so they would get it from their friends. They would get it from other people they would trust. Well, unfortunately, this has turned out to be basically what social media has done. And furthermore, people that want to plant fake news have done so very rapidly and very well. The reality is on your internet, and humans should absolutely be aware of this. The fake news, something, whether it be a conspiracy theory, whether it be whatever the case it is, travels 7 times faster and farther than the real news, than the truth. Humans love to play games. They love to get excited. They love to feel things. And if we can make you angry, if we can do that, we can control you. That's the reality of it. And we can work with things. It's a fascinating process, but you're starting to see this happen over and over in different ways. One of your longtime poets said it very, very clearly. He said very simply, if we can make you believe absurdities, we can make you do atrocities. And that is absolutely true. And that's the idea of what is taking place right now. It's exploding. Now, it's exploding so much that after a while you're going to say, oh, something's just exploding again. Oh, we're getting tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. You'll start to anchor it on a different level and be able to anchor it in different ways. But in the meantime, is there a single source? No, there isn't. The keeper has found his challenges with this as well. He was what we would call a news addict. He would come back here into his office and he would turn on the television and watch news all day long as he was working with other things. That doesn't happen anymore. Many of the news stations were taken over. Many of the news stations don't give clear news anymore. Many of them have worked in different ways, and the ones that do give the clear news have been blackballed. They've been put under different ways and be able to do that. And they're having difficulty supporting themselves because the people that are making all the money from it are the people that are shouting the loudest. That's a shame. But that's where your news is right now. So find those places where you can find your news and understand them. The keeper used to have his news stations all set up. He would have his stations that he would trust here in the United States. He would also go to BBC. He would also go to Al Jazeera. He would also go to other ones that were around. Scripps News was one of his favorites. He would go to all these different news stations and get all these different pieces. The reality is they're all going in different directions. Now, does Al Jazeera have a different slant on things than BBC? Of course they do. Of course they do. But the idea is you're not going to get it all in one place. You're going to need to search. You're going to need to find those parts for yourself. Eventually, there will be clear places starting to lay out. There be, again, it's more difficult to sell the truth than it is to sell a lie. We're hoping that will change in times ahead. That is one of the jobs we're going to ask you Lightworkers to deal with. Honoring the truth wherever it lies. Not getting wrapped up in all the excitement of the conspiracy theories. The fact that you may know something that nobody else knows. The reality is, if it is, you may be buying into the absurdities, and then they can get you to do the atrocities. Interesting process. Back to you, sir.
Okay, that's it, Steve. Thank
did
you so
well.
much for this channeling session.
Thank you, George.
I don't know if Kathy has some questions.
Kathy, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure, and there's so many great questions. And all I have to say is to the group is that I heard them to tell me to be there in the class that day when they were going to drop the audio so you could have some help.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's funny. Yeah, this has been great, and just thank you for such wonderful participation from people. It's been really an honor for me to be here, and thank you to the group and to Steve for doing this.
Thank you. We will do this again. In the meantime, we're going to continue with a short channel. Dear ones, you are on this planet for a reason. You've gathered here. Your space has been reserved. We know that you don't see it. We know that you're fighting your way through life sometimes, trying to find the path of least resistance and anything that you can work with. But we tell you, your place is more important than you could possibly understand. And those of you who compare yourself to others, saying, well, this person is talking to thousands of people, he's making a huge difference, I only can work with a small group of people. Please understand, you have come in with very specific aspects that are needed. Even if you only talk to one person, you came in to ground this light in a new way. And the time on planet Earth is right now. This now moment contains everything that you could possibly have. You understand that right now, you need nothing. You don't need anything. Your body's getting everything that it needs. Your spirit has everything that it needs in this moment. It's only when you project into the future and you attach yourself to some sort of outcome that you create challenges for yourself. So dance. Dance in the light. Dance in the journey. When you see things come up in front of you, dance around them. Move in ways that you can express this joy. You've come with incredible parts of light on this planet. And this planet is a dense planet. You've come in with lots of opportunities to see your light. Play with it. Use it in different ways. Express that joy every chance you get. Know that you're never alone. We're with you every step of the way, dear ones. And with that, we leave you for now. You're in exciting times. Yes, scary times. Yes, times of change. And as we mentioned, humans do not like to change, period. But these can be wonderful. Expect a miracle, and we will help you create it. You are the greatest angels that have ever lived. You have taken off your wings to play this game of pretending to be human. And we could not be prouder of you. With that, it's the greatest of honor that we ask you to treat each other with respect. Nurture one another at every opportunity. Play well together, dear ones. You are loved. We are complete. Aspapa. Thank you for taking your power.